Okay, so welcome to our interview. I really appreciate you both taking your time to inform our students about some of the career opportunities and your own path to get where you're at today. Students are always very curious as to how people ended up where they're at. And I think your stories are very interesting because I know a little bit about them. So we're going to start with introducing yourself. Suhail, maybe you could go first, and then Carolyn, would you go after that?
Sure.
Okay, so Suhail, go ahead.
My name is Mohammed Suhail Vora. My title at Food Micro Labs is supervisor of microbiology or operations supervisor, and my major role there is to facilitate the work. Well, help the lab techs and diagnostic techs and media techs complete their daily tasks. Right. So, I mean, then let's introduce Carolyn.
Yeah, sure. Carolyn, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Gonzalez. I'm the lab director at Food Microbiological Laboratories. And my overall goal and role there is to provide leadership and direction of the operational directives of the laboratory. So what kind of methods do we offer our clients? How do we develop our SOPs so all the techs are trained in the same manner? And I also offer technical interpretation of results for our clients who are not microbiologists.
Right. Well, great. That kind of leads into the next question. Maybe Carolyn, you can start. What's the mission of your company? What do you do for individuals out there and other companies?
Sure. So our main purpose is to improve the safety and quality of food. And we do that by providing microbiological analytical testing. And most of our clients are food manufacturers, not scientists. And so by providing this service of reliable, accurate test results, that helps them determine, if the food is of good quality, if it's safe enough to be put out into commerce.
Great, thanks. Suhail, do you have anything to add about what goes on at your company?
No, I can handle the next couple questions.
Sure. So, how many companies do you service regularly? That question.
Oh, no, I was gonna go with like what do we do in a typical day?
Oh, okay. So, let's get to that in just a second. So, one of you, could you answer how many companies do you normally service as part of your business?
So we have over 500 food manufacturers that come to us for testing on a daily basis. We are testing between 600 and 800 samples a day. And that's about 1,800 analytical tests in our Southern California community. We also get samples in from all over the United States. So we'll have companies that ship samples to us as well.
And in order to process that many samples a day, how many employees do you have?
We have 50 employees, and they range in age from 19 years old to 71 years old. So we have a lot of college students. They have a lot of flexibility in their schedule. And so, and they're willing to learn. So we love that. And then we have retirees who have retired from their other careers and have come over to work for us. And so I have a few employees that are 71 years old working as couriers for us. So
yeah, that's cool. All right, so Suhail, maybe describe a typical day. Is that where you wanted to pick up?
Yeah, I'll pick up from there. I'll come in sometime in the afternoon, and so I come in the afternoon because the samples get there in the morning to late afternoon, and they have to be processed by our logging department. So we know what tests to run and what samples to run those tests on. And they're given a specific code. So a lot of times the lab techs don't know who the manufacturer is or anything, but they're just giving a work list of what testing needs to be done. And so I'll come in the afternoon, and so will some of the most of the lab techs, and they'll start working on the samples, and I'm there to if they have any questions, if they need to correct anything, if something goes wrong, I help to keep the flow moving. And the same with our chemistry department or our diagnostic department. Then we look at data. Me and the other supervisors look at data and make sure everything's okay. And we finally send those reports out throughout the day, right? It's not just me, right? There's other supervisors there doing the similar tasks. And we report to our lab manager, who basically oversees the whole operation.
And then as a lab director, Carolyn, what does your day look like?
I answer a ton of questions all day long. So anywhere from emails, phone calls, and the questions come from everywhere, mostly our clients. So they want to know what kind of testing they can do to improve the shelf life of their product. What if they have a safety issue? If they didn't hit the proper cooking temperature or cooling time, what can they do? Do they have to destroy the product? Can they do some other kind of processing to make it safe and release it? From internal questions on methods and SOPs and things like that. So really, I just answer questions all day long. But that just facilitates what we do all day. And I know Suhail didn't touch on this, but he is so important in what we do because we process so many samples so quickly. He's overseeing the lab techs that are taking, let's just say, a burrito, and you can't take a burrito and put it on a petri dish. So there's so many things that have to go in between reporting of results. So we take this burrito, the lab tech will sample prep it. So he'll take portions of it, homogenize it, perform serial dilutions, and all of that, has to be synchronized so that the results come out on time. And that's what Suhail is really doing as a supervisor. He's there to answer questions and facilitate that process.
Oh, that's cool. So maybe Suhail, I'll return back to you. Maybe you can describe a little bit about what a day of one of the individuals working under you is like, one of the lab personnel that's performing the tests.
Okay, sure. They'll come in, and then they'll basically gown up, like put a lab coat on, make sure they have their PPE on. I know we touch upon it like in regular life now, but hygiene was important before coronavirus, and we ensure they're washing their hands and all that stuff as they walk in. And then they'll usually, if they're sample prepping, if they're plating, so there's qualitative and quantitative tests. Let's say they'll go to log in, grab their samples, and then as Carolyn said, like if you have a pie, you have to figure out a way to get that pie in and process it. So they'll take a representative sample of that pie and then dilute it down, right? So a 1 to 10 dilution, so we can work with something that's liquid, and they'll work on that, and they do that for a good 6 hours, right? It's not just learning the science; it's being able to implement it and have the stick-to-itiveness to do that for 8 hours a day, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times when you're learning something new, you're like, oh, this is super exciting. And then you're like, okay, now do it 500 times, and then they'll go to lunch and come back and continue in that specific area, right? If it's a media tech, they could be making, 6 different types of media, running the autoclave, cleaning, there's always cleaning involved. A diagnostic tech will, that's probably the most varied amount of tests, because they're reading what the lab techs have initiated, right? The lab initiates testing, whereas diagnostics reads those tests and quantifies it or concludes it, basically.
Decides what the results are, right?
Positive, right.
Safe, not safe. Okay. So for the entry level positions in your company, what are they? I know, Carolyn, you mentioned you have people as young as 19. So what are some of the entry level types of positions?
So we start anywhere for entry level, and Suhail mentioned our login. So our login is basically processing the samples. Who did they come from? What tests do they want? And then that goes into the laboratory. That's an entry level position. Also courier. We have couriers out all morning long picking up our samples. So that's an entry level position. And then we also have assistant lab techs who come in and they clean our media bottles, so that we're doing a lot of turnover of our lab equipment and our lab bottles. They're cleaning that and they're making media. So that's all entry level. And they also can enter, and that's the best way to start. And then you can enter into the laboratory when opportunities arise. So assistant lab techs can also do sample prep, where they're taking the burritos, homogenizing it, taking the pies, and doing things like that. So we have lots of opportunities for entry level students and applicants.
Okay,
I
and
think,
so
oh, sorry.
go ahead,
Oh, I
CJ.
just wanted to, I think we have 10 to 15, our senior lab techs now, like there's 10 to 15 started out as assistant lab techs, and then gained more responsibility as they went on.
And so what kind of skills will these individuals need to acquire? I mean, obviously cleaning is one thing, but even that comes with some skills. What are the skills that people would need to enter into some of these different positions? And you can even touch on the soft skills that you're looking for when you're hiring.
Can I field this question? Yeah. Yes. I think the soft skills are really important because science is always collaborative. And I've had advisors that, they're great in academia because they just want to be in their lab and not talk to anyone and get grants and do that. And that's really not how you can do it in the private industry. Like, we rely on one another. We talk to one another. And if you're doing this every day and you can't relate to another individual, it's going to be really hard. You're going to feel very isolated. And I've seen the lab techs that we have now, when they started flourishing and learning more things and moving into diagnostics and stuff like that, it was after that they felt a team mentality with the lab. That's when they started learning more because, they'll ask another diagnostic guy, oh, how'd you do that? And it will build on their skill set. And the real skills is a big part of it. It's, yes, I can teach you the science, but a lot of it is attention to detail, ensuring that you are, if you can notice something wrong, it's a huge skill. And then, obviously, just, a good work ethic.
Is there anything you'd like to add, Carolyn?
Yeah, I'll touch on a few things. It's definitely good to have just this general background in science-related math. So significant figures, rounding rules, because that plays into all of our serial dilutions and how to do plating techniques. And so that's really, really helpful when they just have a strong, just math. I call it lab math. A lab math background, how to make solutions, percentages. I need a 1% solution of, glacial acetic acid, things like that. So that really comes in handy.
That's good to know. Something that we tell our students, but I think a lot of students don't really love math. So it's good to hear, like, you reinforce that idea that it is important for them to keep up on that and work on that skill. Okay, move on to a new type of question. So I'll start with you, Carolyn. What was this a career that you anticipated early on? Tell us a little bit about your route to arrive where you're at.
Yeah, sure. No, not at all. I had no idea this type of career existed. I didn't have a lot of opportunities when I was growing up. I grew up pretty poor. My mother had me when she was 15. She did finish high school, but my father did not. He dropped out in 8th grade. And so I really didn't have a concept of higher education, college, and a career path. That wasn't something that was in my daily life. Survival was in my daily life. And then I knew I wanted to go to college. College as a concept to me. And the closest college to me was Cerritos College. And things like the difference between a private college, a community college, a UC, a Cal State, those were lost on me. I just thought of college as college. And so I ended up going to Cerritos College for 4 years because it offered a fantastic learning opportunity at a really good value. And I learned so much from there, and I was able to work my way through college. I had to pay my own way. I didn't qualify for any type of financial aid because my parents didn't pay their taxes. So it was really just me. And I didn't know you could pick what you wanted to be. I thought you go to college and they give you your course transcript like they do in high school. So it was a eye opener, and I knew I enjoyed science. So I took all of my general ed and all the sciences. And then I decided I want to be a pharmacist. That's really what I want to do. I want to go to pharmacy school. And once it came time to apply, the application fee was $500. And I couldn't afford that. There was no way tomorrow or the next day that I'd be able to afford that type of an application fee. So I just pivoted. I said, okay, what else can I do in the science field? And I took a microbiology class for nurses. And I fell in love with microbiology. And so I explored that, and I found out that I could transfer to Long Beach State, which was very close. I lived in Bellflower, went to Bellflower High. So I took every single course I could at Cerritos College that would transfer to Long Beach. And I was only at Long Beach for about 3 semesters. And as I was graduating, I have with my degree in medical microbiology. So now I'm taking medical microbiology, and I thought I would be a clinical laboratorian. So you would work in the hospital, and your samples were things like urine, feces, blood. And as I was getting ready to graduate, someone came up to me and said, hey, we're hiring at the lab I work at. It's entry level. You just wash dishes and you work weekends and evenings. And it sounded awful to her. And she said, I don't know, it's not probably something you don't want to do graduating with your degree, but they're hiring. And I said, well, what kind of lab is this? And they said, a food testing lab. What? So I didn't know I could be testing strawberries and burritos and, pies. So I started there working evenings, weekends, washing dishes, making media. I learned a lot. The back of the house is the back of the lab. And that's where I figured out, oh, this is where I want to be. That was my environment. And so that's how I worked my way up from washing dishes to a research technician, and all the way up to a lab director. So it's kind of my career path. It was just pivot and figure out what you're going to do.
I love that story because so many of our students, they face struggles. So to hear somebody like you make it all the way to the top, it's a great story. So thanks for sharing that one.
Sure.
Hale, I know you have an interesting story too. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, sure. Like Carolyn, I was a non-traditional student as well. After high school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But my senior year in high school, I wasn't doing super well in high school, and I decided to join the military, and I spent 5 years in the Marine Corps. And as I was in the Marine Corps, I wanted to get their education opportunities, so I started taking a couple classes at Santiago Canyon College, and after I completed my service, I went full time at Santiago for about a year and a half, and then transferred to University of Nebraska at Lincoln. Did my undergraduate there in biology, general biology, because like Carolyn, I had an idea of what biology was, and I was like, oh, I'll you know, entry level biology, freshman biology, everyone is, oh, I'm going to be a doctor, right? And then they take classes and understand what that entails. And sometimes you change. And I started working in research labs, and I kind of fell in love with parasitology. So I did my master's in parasitology. And when I came back, I started teaching at Santiago Canyon College, and I met Denise. And we took a field trip in one of the biotech classes to Carolyn's lab, and we started talking. And I decided I needed to learn more of the biotechnology field, and I started working in her lab as an entry-level lab tech.
And now you're not an entry-level lab tech anymore.
Entry-level lab tech.
That's a great story too. So thank you. I love hearing those stories because they're never what students expect. They always think that people in their positions knew exactly what they wanted to do, and that's where they're at. And it's so different when you start talking to people, the path that they took to arrive there. So thanks for sharing your stories. As we're sort of wrapping this up, do you have any advice that you'd like to give to the community college students out there that are looking for some knowledge and training to pursue a career in a company like yours?
My advice would be to, not be afraid to start at an entry level position anywhere, especially in a field that you're interested in, and just come in there as a learner. Here, I'm here to learn. I want to see what's going on. And also, don't be afraid to know what you don't want to do. I mean, that takes a lot of decisions off the table. Hey, I know I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And look for things that have opportunities, even in a field that's closely related to what you want to do. And really, like Suhail said, we do a lot of training. So you don't have to have tons of skills under your belt. What you really have to have is the work ethic and the this lifelong learning type of mentality that, yeah, I want to come in here and I want to learn and I'm willing to put the work in. And we're happy to provide the training that's necessary to succeed at what we do.
That's perfect. Suhail, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, I'd like to start with saying this is more in their outlook for education. Is there's no timeline for education, right? I started at 24, my undergrad. I only took a couple classes in Santiago while I was in the Marine Corps, so I felt I was much older than everyone else. But I mean, that's not real, right? There's no timeline for education. And like Carolyn said, don't be scared to ask, hey, can I start, in the media department, or can I put yourself out there, go to conference only one when COVID stops, we can go to conferences, talk to people, get their business cards, and you really never know where this is going to take you. We had a field trip to Food Microlabs, and that's how I met Carolyn. That's how I started, right? So you don't be afraid to put yourself out there, and that's how the vast majority of our lab techs start. They ask us, right, to work there.
Great, thank you. So as we wrap this up, are there any final thoughts, anything that you'd like to add? I really appreciate your time today.
I would just like to thank you for having us on. And yeah, we're happy to do this outreach for all colleges and college students. We're happy to have them. When positions come up, we'll forward them your way. They're always available. And yeah, just thank you for providing the service that you provide, because that really feeds into our industry. You're teaching all of our young and inspiring biotech students, and that really feeds into our industry, and we appreciate that.
Well, we hope that we're preparing them well. Suhail, would you like any additions to this?
Well, I just like to thank you as well. It's really an honor to do this.
Well, I appreciate both of your time. I know you're very busy, so to agree to take time out of your busy day and spend some time with us is, something that we really do appreciate and we don't take for granted. So we hope we'll be working with you in the future with our advisory board and everything. So thanks again. And I'm going to stop recording right now.